Hello and welcome to Red Gaming Tech. My name is Marta. Today is the 11th of October and I have some rather interesting comments for you today from Phil Spencer, who of course you know leads Microsoft Xbox division. Now before I begin, I just want to say that I've had a very long day today and I'm pretty tired, so I'm a bit of a mush mouth, so do forgive me. But the reason I wanted to cover this today is it's regarding a topic that I've spoken about quite a bit over the last year or so, as Phil Spencer spoke this time about the launch parity requirement of indie games, which is of course the ID at Xbox parity clause, which has been the subject of much discussion, which basically means that an indie game that comes out on Xbox One must come out at the same time as it does any other console, or preferably even before it. Now, according to Phil Spencer, this exists because they want to feel, they want Xbox owners to feel like first-class citizens. And then he went on to say, quote, "I look at all the people who buy an Xbox and they invest their time and their money in Xbox One. And as millions of people obviously own Xbox Ones, I want to feel like they're first class, because they are. I want Xbox to feel like a first class citizen when an indie game launches." Now, as I said earlier in the video, this launch parity clause that is attached to the ID Xbox program has come under criticism not only from people such as myself, that being YouTubers, gaming press, etc., but also from game development and the development community, and basically has been addressed as an unnecessary restriction that hinders rather than supports indie games and kind of ties the hands of a lot of indie developers who probably do not have the means to develop for more than one platform at once. And especially when they've already agreed to, say, put it on Steam or maybe the PS4 or whatever, for them to have to release it on Xbox at the same time or maybe even before it's not really within an indie dev's budget to do so most of the time. Now, Microsoft did of course say this spring that they would be addressing the launch parity issue on a case-by-case basis to basically examine if certain games should be exempt if, say, they did sign a timed exclusive deal with another platform. Now, Phil also said that he has many friends who run independent studios and he understands that they, quote, just can't get both games done at the same time, all 3 games, all 4 games, depending on how many platforms they're supporting. So I always just say, let's have a conversation. And then he finished up by saying that this launch parity clause exists because, quote, I don't want somebody to come in and just think I'm going to do a special game on one platform and then I'll get to Xbox whenever I get to it, because I don't think that's right. Now, I can certainly see where he's coming from. He wants the Xbox user, who has of course spent a lot of their hard-earned cash, to feel like they're being treated fairly and getting the same experience as everyone else and getting most of the same games as everyone else. Of course, that's impossible across the board, but they at least want them to get the same experience overall and not feel like they're getting some lousy ports 4 months down the line after PS4. And I can definitely see his logic there, but the logic of the limited budget of an indie developer still exists. The reason I have spoken out against this, is simply because, as I said earlier, if you're some 4-man team and you decided, let's make a game for PC because that's the easiest platform to work on, and then say, you think, oh, I don't know, would you reckon about maybe getting this on Xbox Live or PSN? Okay, let's get to it. And they just don't have the means to get it on all 3 at the same time. And yes, Phil says they can have a conversation, but obviously every developer who's in that situation doesn't get on it, because then there's no point in the parity clause existing. So I can see what he's saying, but I still think that it's kind of limiting, given that indie devs just don't have the means that a AAA developer does. And while you could argue, well, that means more quality games, yes and no. It means less games are getting onto Xbox, which means less crap, because the more games you have, obviously, the more crap there's going to be. But it could mean that Xbox users are missing out on some great titles simply because that the guys who made them had already agreed to have like a exclusivity with Steam or PS4, or just didn't have the money or whatever, and they won't get it simply because of this parity clause, and they weren't allowed on via this case-by-case basis thing that Phil was speaking of. So I don't know, it's a tough one. I can see where Phil is coming from, but at the same time, I can see where the indies are coming from, and I just feel like there has to be some better ground than this, but I don't know what offhand. But I'd love to know your thoughts. I'm not against the parity clause exactly, I just feel like, I don't know, it needs to be a little more flexible, as we are talking about indie developers, not guys with millions and millions of dollars behind them. So I don't know, it's a tough one, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, as I'm not really sure where I stand. I can kind of see where both sides of the fence are, to be honest, and I can kind of empathise with both of them. Anyway, as I said, do let me know below, and I'll see you next time.